Hi, welcome to another episode where we get to meet amazing people creating amazing change in this world. It is my pleasure and great honor to be able to introduce you to a great friend. His name is Dr. Ali Lankerani. He's affectionately known as Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer. I would like to now officially welcome Dr. L to our channel. Thank you so much for being here today. We're so excited to have you here to be able to share your expertise with our community. Please tell us more about your story, how you got to where you are today. We're really looking forward to hearing more about you.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your warm welcome. And I'm glad to be here. I'm very excited to be here. Hello, everybody. My name is Ali Lankerani. I go by Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer these days. So there's so much online, I'm almost forgetting my actual real name these days. But I am a clinical neuroscientist, as Jennifer mentioned. And it took me a PhD to figure out that growing up, I actually had ADHD. And this is before ADHD was a thing that was diagnosed. So I was known as this bright kid that would get the point of what the teacher was trying to accomplish in the first 10 minutes of the class. I would disrupt the remaining 50 minutes of class time, basically. So I apologize to all the teachers and all the other kids that I interrupted. And if any of you are teachers, I apologize on behalf of all the ADHD people.
It's being an educator myself. I think that there's a lot of us are we're always looking for strategies to help kids and support them in our classrooms. And with today's day and age, we're often finding larger classrooms with a lot of students, and we have to help with different needs. And it's interesting that you bring that up because it's something that we all want to be able to address and be able to effectively support our youth so that they can feel supported and achieve the best that they can be. So with that said, actually, do you have any suggestions, being the expert that you are, in terms of how we can explore that in our classrooms, but not only that, but also in our parents at home who are right now supporting their children at home with learning? That also poses an interesting question for them. Do you have any advice that might be able to help them?
Absolutely, Jennifer. That's a great question. So there's different parts to what you just asked. The first part, of course, is let's focus on the kids and let's center on the kids. Because a lot of times when we have the school system, we want to make sure that we cater to all the different audiences, all the different kids that are out there. And in the process, we sometimes forget the fact that the kids themselves are still individual in their own plane of development with their own timeline. And just because they pass a certain calendar day, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are exactly where they're supposed to be. So I know that growing up, when it comes to children, there's developmental milestones that they have to go through, and it's important for them to follow those and not fall behind and stay within that window. But having said that, we need to also allow the children to explore the world on their own pace, basically. I'm a big fan of observing the kids and making sure that we cater and customize their learning to their curiosity. It is very important for children to remain curious. The worst thing that can happen to us as we grow up is to lose that curiosity, that love of learning, basically. So I'm a big proponent of making sure that we keep the kids engaged in learning, whatever it happens to be that they want to discover about the world around them. So that's the first thing, to make sure that we address it not based on an agenda and a curriculum, but also based on the child's interests. But having said that, it becomes that much more important for the parents to do their part at home, make sure that the children are being optimized, being raised as much as possible in a healthy and active fashion, so that when their brain is being asked to learn something, that brain is up to the challenge, basically, that it's gotten its rest, it has this nutrition, and it has the proper ingredients necessary for those neurons and the synapses to connect and the learning process to happen when they go to school. So both of those kind of have to play hand in hand. So then that brings us to the second question about distance learning, of course, which is a completely new thing. And this is one where I think we need to kind of go and ask the people who have a bit more experience with this, the people who've been homeschooling for a long period of time. What were their techniques? Because the same classroom setting where you sat in front of a desk and you saw your teacher teach for 6 hours, whatever number of hours it was, that is not necessarily the best thing to do in front of a screen. And learning doesn't happen through inactivity and watching a screen. Learning has to be real world learning. So we need to make sure that we incorporate this in a fashion where the kids understand its connection to themselves, to the world around them, how it's applicable, and how they can go at their own pace, but make sure that they cover all the areas that they need to progress forward as well.
Great, great information. Thank you for sharing that. It actually brings up another question of mine as you're discussing that. In terms of the holistic approach. So when we have that educational aspect in mind, I'm also thinking of the backstory about what kids would need in terms of sleep, nutrition, exercise, those kinds of things. Do you have any advice on that? Because right now, a lot of people's lives are being sort of torn around, and we're having to reinvent ourselves, reinvent our routines. Any quick tips? And quick tips might be hard. It might be a longer story.
Well,
Any,
I love that question, because oftentimes when we become parents, we are thrown into this new phase of life, right? And the typical thinking is, I'm going to do whatever it takes so that my child ends up having this full life, right? So we want to give everything we've got to the child, and so that they can thrive. But in that process, what do? We automatically say in the back of our heads that we are going to survive, merely survive, so that our kids can thrive. But the problem with that is that the first teacher, the first role model and the educator for the kids is the parents. So if you want your child to thrive, you need to show them what thrive looks like. Because as we all know, it's much easier for kids to follow and for us to lead by example, as opposed to having to preach to the kids, do this, don't do that, this is good for you, this is bad, right? Because then they have to get this concept, put it inside their brain, and try to figure out how to apply it to day-to-day life. That's a very difficult and actually adult process. So it's much easier for them to look at their superheroes, the parents, and see what they're doing, because when they grow up, they want to be just like mom and dad. So if they can see you thriving in your life, if they can see that you put your health first, that you put your communication, your dreams, how you show up in the world first, they understand that it is important to have a strong sense of self, what you stand for, what you stand against, and go from there. And this always comes back to, you always start with your health. Because if you are going to show up to life as the fullest person and deliver your message to this world, you need the biggest ally, the biggest support. And the best thing that can support you is your body. That is one thing that you've got that's with you all your life, genetically, evolutionarily, is designed and optimized. Even like every disease and every experience you've gone through has optimized your body and your brain to support you where you are today in your life. So if you can support your body, it in turn can go ahead and support you. If you want to take control of your life, if you want your children to be in control of their lives and lead full lives, then the best thing to do is to make sure you control the single organ that controls the function of everything else, which is your brain, right?
right.
And the brain requires a few basic things to feel supported. That is what I used to do in private practice. In fact, I would not start therapy and rewiring a child's brain and ask that brain to do things it had never done before, unless that brain was supported enough with the building blocks, with the energy materials that it needed, so that it actually can perform the task that I'm going to ask it to do. So there's that foundational piece for your brain that is the cornerstone of ultimately how humanity thrives as a whole, because what you do in life is going to benefit everybody else out there as well.
Wow, that's very deep and so true. I mean, it starts with oneself, and it, as you said, parents are the first educators, the first role models, the first superheroes. And it's so key. I think that it's so easy to forget that when we're just kind of going through the daily grind and our daily routines, and especially when you add overwhelm to that,
right.
People can forget their basic needs, and because they're thinking of their children.
Right.
So
and the daily grind and the routines is not a bad thing. It's just that your daily routines and your daily grind needs to reflect your message, who you are, a healthy lifestyle, sustainability. If you can't sustain your health, how can we talk about sustaining the planet? All of this is interwoven, interconnected. So you want to show sustainability in the environment? Let's start at home. Let's start with our own bodies.
Oh,
Instead of hacking the health, let's try to work with our bodies, right?
so profound and so true. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that home to us. And we're living in an age right now where we have to make so many changes, not only locally, but globally. We're seeing all these global changes that are happening and affecting our planet, affecting our global society. So bringing that back home, thank you for bringing that to us in terms of just seeing perspectives. So we want to be healthy, we have to start with ourselves, and we also want to be looking at that and to be able to manage ourselves so that we can be the best versions of ourselves to be able to give back to our local and global communities. So that's really, really powerful information. Thank you. With that said, I would like to ask you what kind of services that you might be able to provide our local and global communities in terms of offerings that perhaps if parents want support, children need support, what kind of services might they be able to get from you so that they'd be able to learn a little bit more about how to manage their overall health?
Appreciate that, Jennifer. Well, my company is called Role Model Maker, and the mission, our mission, my mission, is to support, empower, and inspire parents and moms specifically to lead by example, lead a healthy, happy, and full life, so that the future generation can become leaders and role models, just like the moms and the parents are. For the future generation, for the following generation. We have these problems that kind of perpetuate through the ages, war and poverty and ignorance and hunger and these things. And part of that is because you need to kind of do this grassroots thing within one generation to be able to kind of get rid of these things. And we can do that. And it really starts with the parents. I don't mean to put the burden on them. I actually think it's a very powerful mission, and we should uplift them so that they can rise up to that challenge. It is a challenge, and I do understand. I want to do whatever I can to support and inspire them. So the two programs that I have in the company, one of them is more on health and personal development, and our starting point, of course, is nutrition. And the other program that we have is regarding communication and social development and creating a functional family unit, which happens to be much more of an externally focused program on effective and positive parenting, spousal relationships, healthy child development, those type of things.
Okay, great. And hopefully we'll be able to leave some information below. So maybe we'll get back to you with that. And underneath our channel, we'll be able to have a link to some of those programs to be able to service our communities to further support them. So it's a very exciting opportunity. I highly encourage people to look up Dr. L. He's got some great programs to really help support you. Thank you.